Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Dumb SEO Questions, episode 225. Each week we meet here to discuss the questions asked in the SEO Questions community on Google+, on our Facebook page, Dumb SEO Questions, and also on Twitter via the Twitter handle, Dumb SEO QS. With us tonight, we have Masataki Wasa. Masataki is webmaster of wasaweb.net. He's also a Google top contributor in the AdSense community. Masataki can be found at wasaweb.net. Senior SEO manager for Zendesk is Micah Fisher-Kirshner. I forgot to mention Masataki lives in the UK. Micah lives in the west coast of the USA. Mike is also a regular on the SEO public speaking circuit. Tim Capper is CEO of onlineownership.com. He's also a Google top contributor on the Google My Business community. And Tim is also, no, that's all. All right. Okay, our first question tonight is, I've got to tweak this first, damn it. Our first question tonight is titled, Google showing a different title. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't think that'd be so slow. Damn it. We're having whole heaps of trouble with our software at the moment. Google has changed it and is blocking anything that's not a browser. It's not letting us get our own questions. Anyway, it's titled Google showing a different title in the snippet other than what's on the page. And Arsen Rabinovich wants to know if anybody has experience of this. I see a couple of great answers from Alan Blue Eyes, and I think Tim Capper was there at one point.
Don't forget me.
You too, Micah?
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't get pulled in, but yeah. This could happen for a variety of different reasons. One can be Google's decided on their own, so if the title's not very relevant, Google will make the judgment call and choose it. Two, there could be some form of cloaking, intentional or accidental. This can be through, for example, JavaScript insertion. So that's something to be aware of. Three, there may be a cache setup. So it's the page is kind of like, I think it's 304, not updated if I recall. And so what might be happening is that while you might see the title tag yourself personally, you're telling the search engines that actually don't update because there's been no change. And that also can occur from a cache type setting. So those are at least, I think, the three more common situations of what I've seen when Google's showing a different title tag.
Thank you, Micah. I don't think we need anybody else to add to that, do we? That one was on Facebook, and we thank Neil Cheeseman and Alan Blue Eyes, and of course Micah for adding to it. This one, it's not really an SEO question, but Erin McKay asked if anyone has any free good software that does what Grammarly does.
No, No, I don't. Never really looked, so I'm not too sure.
All right.
If I tell you what I do, if I've created a bit of, like obviously a heavy bit of copy, I just I've got a go-to kind of copywriter that I've used for a while, or a proofreader for a while on Fiverr. But it's not very often that I produce a big piece of content.
Yeah.
I'm more sound bites me.
All right. Let's mosey on to the next. No, I don't want to do that. This one, does having multiple H1s on a web page affect rankings? Is there anyone with any evidence of this from anyone? A general question. Does having multiple H1s on a web page affect rankings, either negative or positive, on search engine result pages?
In my experience, no. Look, if you have the opportunity to tidy up your structure, then that's great. If it's part of an audit and that you're trying to sort it out, fine, fair dues. But if you come across, I mean, I'll give from my experience, I've I do the odd little bit of work for a client when they want to try something else out, but literally they've got an ASP site. It's a flipping nightmare. The logos in an H1, the freaking images are in H1s. That every single piece of bolded text on the site is an H1. There's like 50 H1s on every flipping flaming page. Yet they're averaging 100,000 visits a month and turn over 2 million a year. I mean, in terms of search results, they pretty much there for every single conceivable term and product within their site. So if you've got priorities with a site, I wouldn't put that at the top of my list. It's nice if you can sort it out structurally, but it's not something that I would just make it. It's not something I would prioritize, put it that way. If you can get it sorted, great. If not, I wouldn't lose sleep over it.
Yeah. Yes, it's amazing what Googlebot can swallow. All right, let me tweet that and we'll move on. We have 8 questions tonight, and I have a confession to make. The changes to the Google Community Management tricked me, and over Christmas, you'll notice that we had a very, very few questions. And I've just realized this is because Google had them under another tab, moderated, so in a review queues that didn't appear on the SEO Questions community. They were in a tab called Held for Review. So anyway, I'll fix that. Let's go to the next. All right, question 4. It's a problem regarding special characters in SEO. It's from Gregoire Lorca. And Gregoire said, "Dear all, I'm having a problem regarding special characters in SEO. In French, we use lots of apostrophes. It's a bit like in English, where you use isn't instead of is not, except that we do not have a formal complete form. For instance, post type would be translated by type the article, but there is no way to say it without an apostrophe. If I use this sentence as a keyword for my SEO, I cannot put the apostrophe in the permalink because it's an illegal character for a URL. So I use type article, which is different from the keyword type type of article. The same goes for file names. Is that a problem? Do you know how Google deals with apostrophes in keywords, permalinks? Because Google uses type of article way more often than type article or type D article. Thanks for your help. That's a puzzle.
I'd say the answer is no, you don't have to worry about it. So long as in your text, in the body text, you have those keywords, you write properly, as it were. What the file name is, therefore what the URL is, I don't think matters that much.
Yeah, fair enough. Anybody else? All right, let's move on to the next. This one from Christos Petru, who said he has a tricky question. Why, when I change the meta title and meta description of one page, I see it ranking, i.e. a third in the Google results with the use of some keyword search. And after a week with no further changes, it disappears from the first 10 pages of the results. What goes wrong here? Thanks. I apologize. Sorry, Tim, I just finished this. I apologize to Christos. He was one of the questions that were in that held for review tab on our SEO questions community on Google+.
So,
sorry, yeah.
So you've changed the title. So you've essentially changed something on the page. Google comes along, finds it, and so when Google first finds a piece of content, it kind of wants to get it indexed, and generally when it's first indexed, it's much higher up, because Google wants to get it indexed and get it seen. But then after a couple of days or week, it then understands what's on this page and how it relates to everything for that particular search query. And if they don't find it particularly relevant to that search query, then of course naturally it drops down. It's the same thing with like an article that you may have published that over time it dwindles down in the positions as other people update or create different things, and Google sort of reevaluates all the time. Is this the most relevant, or is this really relevant to that particular search query? So I would say it's not really got anything to do with your title and meta description. I would say it's more to do how Google's seeing the content on the page once they decide where and how relevant you are to that search term. So I would not be looking at trying to tweak your title or your meta description, but I would certainly be looking at, can you improve whatever the particular content is on the page? Can you make it more relevant to that search query? Can you add to it? Can you make it better? What are the other people doing above you? If it's like a product, for example, and there's just, I don't know, a small little body of text, and everyone else has got the same product and a small little body of text, Can you add any additional information to it regarding how purchasers have actually found it? You know, can you get something additional on there, like I don't know, let's say it's a toothbrush. You know, can you get some purchasers to provide some of their own thoughts on it? You know, I found this toothbrush really, the ergonomic handle was great, you know, with a rubber flex grip, or whatever the case may be. So providing that little bit of extra insight into it for the users, and Google will interpret that. Can you perhaps change up the images? Can you make them better than every other one that's doing the stock standard images? You know, can you create any other user content for that page, video perhaps, you know, something like that. The point being is, if Google is dropping you down, it's not because of your title or your meta description, it's because how they feel the content on that page is related to that search query, and how useful they feel it would be to the user to have you in position 2 or 3 that they could click, you know, that they would click on. Would it satisfy the user? I would really look at what you can do with the content on that page to make it more relevant to that search query. And then ultimately your content is going to match up with your title, which is all going to work nicely together. And then you know, you should see the increase.
Thank you, Tim. All right, let's go to the next. This one from Greg Christen. He said a large spike in the crawl stats section in Google Search Console. He said, my question to the community is if this could be due to the fact that I have seen 404s grow in December and January for my site. I checked the index section in Google Search Console, and I'm not seeing an increase in index pages. And so I'm wondering if a lot of 404s on the site could spike the crawl rate. For context, we average about 13,000 crawled pages per day, and it shot up to 46,000. Thanks.
Well, my thoughts on this are essentially, you know, your crawl rate. Google doesn't want to hammer a site. Google will crawl your site or your crawl rate at what they feel the site can handle. You know, they're not going to hammer your site and, you know, essentially take it down. They crawl it at what they feel your site can handle. Now, in terms of the 404s, what I'm thinking here is that potentially they found a string of 404s, which, because of naturally it's a 404, it's not going to hammer anything. You know, in that sense, they'll hit the URL. It's a server response is 404. Boom, they're gone onto the next one. You say that there was an increase, so what I'm thinking is potentially they found a string of 404s and they just hit them, because it's not going to essentially you know, be detrimental to your site, because they're just hitting the query string, getting the server error, and then they're just moving to the next one, and the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. That could potentially explain the increase in the crawl rate and the increase in the 404s. I'm not entirely sure, but that might be it.
Yeah. The only thing that I would worry in that situation is that if there's so many 404s, and that's a proper response because it's, you know, the resource is not there, so that's fine. But if you have so many that that Google cannot crawl the actual existing content, because Google tries not to, you know, put too much strain on the servers. So, you know, if they're always looking for, you know, if they're always going and looking for the 404s, they might not come around to looking at the pages that actually exist. I'm not so sure how likely that is, but as a theoretical consideration, is it something that you worry about?
It's, I mean, if you've got 13,000 pages and suddenly you're creating a double amount of which they're calling false pages, I would be concerned it's quite a lot for your site, but my concern would be more if you've created some type of duplicate content. That's, well, not duplicate content per se, but rather you might have had duplicate content even. You might have just created a whole slew of new pages that are broken, that people can get to. That's possibly pretty prominent. It's also just it's a bad kind of crawl efficiency. So that's less time that it can spend on updating your website. It's more time spent on, basically it's spending more time on your 404 pages than your own website. That doesn't feel right to me. If it's crawling more of your broken pages than your own web page, it's probably time to go and see what that is and fix it. Do I think it's going to create a huge issue? Probably not right away. As long as those pages aren't being indexed and have 404s, probably fine. But it'd probably be on the medium term. I would first, at least for sure, find out what kind of pages there are, and if these were if they were kind of pages that had gotten external links, or if they're just randomly new pages. But it wouldn't be like a top priority if need be to fix. Potentially, it depends on kind of what kind of pages and what's being created. But yeah, I could definitely see it creating a spike in your crawl stats because of something like that.
Excellent, Micah, and also Masataki and Tim. Thank you very much. And let's go to the next. From Shripali Bhati Ira, has a question titled "After updating keywords." She goes on to say, after updating the keywords in a website, should we then fetch and render it via Google Search Console? Is this necessary?
I answered this, and my first one was when you said updating the keywords, and did she mean meta keywords? And she came back with yes. So essentially, firstly, I don't know why you'd want to be using keywords. Search engines haven't used them in, I don't know, 10 years or so. If you did feel a need to use a keyword, 1 to 3, obviously relevant, but no more. It could be viewed as a spam indicator. And obviously, if you did update them, would it be necessary to fetch and render? No. Essentially, Googlebot's going to come back to that page, and they'll find it. If you significantly change the content on the page, updated it with new information, I don't know, something's become out of date and it's pretty important to update it because of, I don't know, a new regulation or law or whatever, or the hotel's burnt down, whatever the case may be, and it's important for that to be updated. Yes, you can then use the fetch and render to bring Googlebot back to it as quickly as possible. But in theory, that should also be in your sitemap, which Googlebot, which is in your search console, and they'll find it pretty, fairly sharpishly. Actually, no. One, I wouldn't be bothering with meta keywords. There's far better things to be doing with your time. And even if you did, would you fetch and render? No, it's not necessary.
Okay, thanks, Tim. I think that covers it, guys. Move on to the next. This one is from Hunter and Hine, attorneys at law, on changing address and opening a new location. I think Hunter and Hine, they were people that gave us a lovely review on our Dumb SEO Questions page, and we thank them for that very much. The question was, hello group, my US-based law firm is about to begin two major tasks. One, changing our address in our home city. This is creating a number of major concerns regarding our name, address, phone details, and the potential rank drop. We have our current address listed in hundreds, if not thousands of places across the web, and are worried about inconsistencies hurting our Google ranking. I'm looking for advice on how to most effectively do this, sequence of events, etc. 2, we are opening a new location in a new city next to our home city. I have a ton of questions about how to do this correctly, including how to correctly incorporate the new location into our existing website. Do you suggest using a landing page or just build a new site, which would be a duplication of the other? How to optimize the city locations jointly and separately, social media using the same phone number, etc. I would like to schedule, and I am willing to pay for, don't think that, a few initial consultations with people who have extensive experience with both of these errors. I hope this is an appropriate forum to ask for such help and quotes. I have attempted to find such an expert on my own without much luck. I'm not sure what the best way to get quotes would be. I guess if people respond with contact info, I can call. I anticipate doing most of the work on my own, so I'm mostly interested in just a consultation at this point, but may be interested in keeping someone on a retainer as I have questions regularly.
Well, you haven't been looking in the right place for these experts, but I guess you found them now. Okay, so
yeah.
Right, so okay, number one. Right, so I'm assuming you don't have a list of all the places that directories that list your citations. So essentially, there's one or two ways you can do this. WhiteSpark has a little kind of citation finder, which I think it's like $30 a month or something. Essentially, you could just use it once, download the list that they come up with of your locations. However, caveat there, when I've used it and I've just used regular search queries, I found way more in just regular search queries. The problem is then you need to scrape Google itself to get each and every one. So it's entirely up to you. You know, one will provide one, and one obviously will provide more. But of course, it's so cutting that out. Let's just say you assume you find you know how to find all these. Essentially, in the US, they skip my mind now, but let's say you've got 1,000 directories that are listing the business's name, address, phone number, etc., which you are about to change. I would have a squiz through, because there are 3 or 4 main actual sites that a lot of those tend to pull the information from anyway. So out of those, you could essentially just halve the list. So when you say there's 1,000 sites out there that are mentioning you, in all reality, it's really only 4 or 5 that are aggregating out to the rest, and the others just, you know, kind of scrape it or are aggregators. So, but let's just assume you've got 1,000. Yeah, this is the pretty tedious thing, is you are essentially going to have to work your way through. I'm assuming you've got the old login details when you submitted them. If you don't, then you're obviously going to need to contact them using the contact us page. Some of them already have a little thing saying, is something wrong with this? And then you can suggest a new address, etc. Just keep a spreadsheet. You know, once you've created your list, keep a spreadsheet, have contacted, aggregator, whatever the case may be. So you just keep an eye on it. The good thing is that, you know, the situation with like having a rank drop is not really going to happen immediately anyway. It takes a hang of a long time for Google to re-find some of these directories. In fact, you know, they may just index it and never revisit that page for years and years, because why do they need to? It's pointless. So, you know, you might change, and you know, there won't be anything. So essentially, don't have a panic fit about it. Create your list, pop it in a spreadsheet, and just essentially work your way through and update them. Nothing's going to happen overnight. Like I said, it takes ages, and of course, it may not even reflect your newer address. A little tip there on how to get them re-indexed fairly quickly is, I'm assuming on your site you've got a blog. What you can do is, once you've changed all the addresses on all of them, you've obviously got the URLs now. You can just chuck them into a new blog post, publish it. Once that's, you know, Google will find that very quickly. They will then find the links to the new things, and then you can just remove the blog post. Obviously, don't put it in today's date, because you don't want you know, one of your customers seeing it. You know, chuck it in like the very first date, like, you know, 5 years back. But it's been published, it will be indexed. It's just a great way to get Googlebot to visit those other locations. So yes, it's tedious. You need to work your way through from the top down to the bottom, but don't freak out about a rank drop, because Google, as like I said, may or may never ever visit those pages again. Now, your second one is you create, you know, you're opening up another office, etc. So the way I would look at the structure of your site is this. So you would create in your contact page, you know, so you want a location section now, where if somebody clicked on the locations, they've either got a choice, so they can either go to city A or see the location for city B. So you essentially want a landing page per location or per city. So it would be, you know, /city A /city B, a nice little landing page with all the contact details for that business in that city, opening times, closing times. You know, obviously embed the actual correct map from your GMB page, you know, in the maps listing. If you use the, you know, if you go into maps, find the listing, click on the little top left menu, drop down, embed, you know, share or embed it onto your site. That's your own location data. You can provide, you know, so what are the interesting bits, you know, interesting for the user? Are both offices staffed by different staff members? You could create a little section about, you know, the staff at that location, the GM, the procurement officer, the blah blah blah. So each one would be different, because you're trying to create a bit of additional content. You just don't want to address in a map. You know, you want to create a decent landing page that's going to work for you also. You can provide some you know, directions, actual verbal directions from any kind of main point, you know, like intersection or whatever, landmarks. You can also provide, you know, little bits of parking, you know, good parking around for clients, which are coming in. That's very useful to them. So that's your 2 landing pages. So essentially the way I would look at it is now you've got your website, which is XYZ law firm, specializing in whatever, domestic or criminal law or whatever. But I would add your 2 locations into your footer. So you would have, XYZ law firm, and with your address next to the address, and then obviously any other quick links or logos or social media profiles you want to add in. Of course, naturally, if you're going to link it, you need to link those addresses to the landing pages that they can click through to. But you can then use structured data markup across your site for both of those little law firms, and then of course Google bot will be finding that, right, this is the business and these are the cities they serve. So ultimately it will start working in your favor to XYZ, like criminal lawyer, and they will go, Google bot will go, criminal lawyer, city A, oh, okay, this guy is there, this guy works in the city, there's his business page. So essentially that's the way I would structure it. So landing page for both cities, give it a bit of thought, give it a bit of welly, put some decent stuff on the page. Not just your address, phone number, people want to contact or want to have a look at this business. They want to know who you are. So tell them, and then take your time, get down all your wherever everyone's linking, all your citations, pop it in a spreadsheet, work your way through it. It is necessary, but I'm not, there's no like massive, oh my God, I need to do that in one day. No, you've got a good while before Googlebot starts realizing that actually you don't exist there anymore. But it does need to be done. Work your way down from the top. You'll find the aggregators pretty quickly, which in fact will probably take care of the rest pretty quickly. Then the other thing is just create a blog post somewhere on your site, obviously with a very old date. Publish that, get that indexed. Google will then re-update the others ones. Yeah. So although you think you've got a big thing on your hands, if you just start from the top, work your way down through the bottom, take it nice and easy, one step at a time, job done.
One thing that struck me is that they seem to have one phone number for 2 locations.
I'd say that. I'm just hoping that he didn't actually mean that.
Yeah, because
no, he certainly can't have the phone number for both locations, because naturally your GMB page is not going to be, well, your Google My Business or your business page that you try and create for the second location, that won't be verified if you're using the same number as a first location in another city. You need to provide a phone number for that office. Each one should have their own phone number, because you don't pick up the phone and go, XYZ lawyers, which city do you want to speak to? No, it should be to your office. So if you haven't got a phone, get a phone. Oh, could these be virtual offices? I hope not. But that's another story.
Yeah. Okay. Masataki, do you want to add something to Tim's excellent answer?
No, I think Tim covered the grounds really extensively well. I don't think I have anything to add. Do you, Jim?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, Tim. I might have even suggested a second site and hang the duplicate content issue. But anyway, Now, for Hunter and Hine, please contact the Tim Kappa Benevolent Fund via onlineownership.com.
Benevolent fund. Oh, Jim.
What are you funding, eh?
Yeah.
All right. Let's,
Funding world.
let's look at the next. I don't think there is one. No, there isn't. It's that time again. We'll be back at the same time next week to do this all again. We thank you for your interest in what we do, because your interest makes what we do worthwhile. And all that's left me now is to say good night and thank you very much.